It was the good day to come. Okay. Every single one of us. And in the Tanya, it speaks in this particular days about the importance of learning the laws of the Torah. Shulchan Aruch. The Rebbe tells everybody to learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the short version of Jewish law. Why is it short? This handy reference. The Talmud is huge, it's books and books and books and books and books. We don't have time to learn all that, and we're not scholarly enough to know where to look. So came codifiers, generations of codifiers who organized it to make it easier for people. And then finally, about 200 years ago, there was a man called Gansfried, and his great-grandson is a shliach in the Upper West Side, Yisrael Fried. And he organized it and wrote what he called the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the short version of Jewish law. It's not a good book to start learning if you don't know anything about Yiddishkeit, because it's a handbook and it takes you through the day. What's the first thing you do in the day? You get up. Say Modani. And then what do? You go to the job, the gym, whatever you want to call it. You have to do after the night. And then you get dressed. And there's laws about all that. That's not how you start introduce a person to Yiddishkeit. What do you do first thing in the morning? And you take an average person, a college student or a member of a community who comes to a class in the rabbi's house and decides that he or she wants to learn about Judaism. They go to the bookstore, they buy the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. The first thing they look at is how do you behave first thing in the morning. Look at is what goes on when you get married. That's also pretty awesome. So, but that's all but the importance. What's the importance of? The importance of it is it's like a cracking process, by oil. You have crude oil, and it goes through many processes of refinement before you can put it in your car engine to refine it. And similarly with olive oil, refine it the best till you get the best. In the decisions of the rabbis who work on this tell us what Jewish law is. What is the Jewish law? Now just think for a second. This is what Hashem wants. Jewish law is an expression of God's will and wisdom. And when you do something according to what it says in Jewish law, you are connecting with the will and the wisdom of God. That's what it talks about in the Tanya today and yesterday. So we're living with the times. That's exactly what the times are all about. Second thing about the times is that today is the birthday of the Rebbe Sholem Ber, called the Rebbe Rashab, according to his initials, Rashab. And he was the ultimate codifier of Hasidic thought. So that when we learn his teachings, it's like we're getting the will and the wisdom of Hashem's essence, of his soul. He set it down based on the principles that he received from the Rebbeim before him. Now, we have to say a kapitel Tehillim before we get carried away. We'll bring the whole class. Say a kapitel Tehillim. I already got carried away a little bit because you have to know what a special day it is today, the 20th day, and I'll come back to this after we say a Tehillim for the shira of our brothers in Israel and all over the world. Because there's a world war going on, They called it a truce fire. A ceasefire was not a truce. That's me to regain, regroup, and get more ammunition, and then plan their next attack. What else should be done? I don't know. But these ceasefires only play into the hands of the terrorists. They do not help us. They do not help us. Chapter 20. Lam Natseir Mizmar LeDavid. Yadcha Adonai B'Yem Tzara. Hashem should answer us on this day of our distress. Yisagev Hashem Elohei Yankev, and He should give us the name of God. Should give us support and strength. Yishlach Ezra HaMekaydesh. He should send help from His holy chamber. Umitzion, and from Zion He should send support. Zion is Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the base of Mikdash. Iskar, you should recall and remember all your flower offerings. A flower offering is called a mincha. And your burnt offerings. Yadashna, Selah, should be graciously accepted. We learned about burnt offerings, right? That there are 4 kinds of burnt offerings. There's sheep, goats, there's cattle, a dog, honey, you could have some pizza instead. And Hashem should grant your heart's requests in reply to your, since you're giving Him an offering, or have a request, what can I do for you? He says, and you tell Hashem, and tell Him what you're going to do. What's good thing you're undertaking? He should enable you to fulfill your decisions. Run, then we will rejoice. In your salvation, Hashem. What salvation? It means Geula. It means the end of all our enemies. We can live peacefully in our land, serve Hashem with full hearts. Hashem Eloheinu Nidgel, and we will raise the banner of God on high. Yimali Adonai Kol Mishalisecha, and Hashem will fulfill all your. Now says King David. It's interesting. In the sacrifice Abraham brought when he was to bring his son Yitzchak as an offering, and after she passes the test, and Hashem says, "I told you just bring him. I didn't tell you to slaughter him." And Hashem says, and Hashem gives Abraham and all his children forever and ever. That's us. Blessings, eternal blessings. And He says, "Now I know for sure," says Hashem, "that you really mean it." Because all the nations of the world were saying you were just being selfish and you didn't really mean it with a full heart. Now I know for sure. So King David takes these same words and puts them in this psalm. And he says, now I know that Hashem saves His anointed one, His Moshiach. He answers him from His holy heavens. Shmei is heavens, Shamayim, Shmei. Kodshe, His holy heavens, B'gevures, with mightiness, Yesha, salvation, Yemine, from the right hand. They come with their chariots and their armored vehicles and their cavalry, Vasusim. A sus is a horse. There was a guy, he had a horse, he called him Sus. Nice name for a horse. We call on the name of God. We come fight with the name of God on our lips. They stumbled and fell, and they disappeared from the scene of history, from the stage of history. We stood up from one person, Abram and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Rachel and Leah, Yaakov, Rachel and Leah. And we're still standing strong 3,500 years later. We did not falter and we did not get discouraged. Hashem, deliver us. He is our King, and He will answer us on the day that we call. Now, and this is an interesting point about Cheshvan, just to digress a little bit. It's really not a digression because it's worthwhile to speak about Cheshvan. Maybe you'll have a special class about River Rashab today. Is that scheduled?
Yeah, last night.
Oh, yeah? Tell me something. You don't remember? Okay, so when I tell you a story about him when he was 4 years old, or 4 or 5 years old. He had an older brother, Zalman Aaron, and they used to play together. They were kids, played together. What the children play? They play games like their parents. He liked their parents. So these children, they played. What was the game of the children of their father was the Rebbe Shmuel, the fourth Rebbe. And Shmuel was the youngest son of the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek, who had the same name as our Rebbe, Menachem Mendel. And his wife had the same name as our Rebbetzin, Musha. Okay, so they were 4 and 5 years old. We know how old they were because he was born this year, and his father became Rebbe 4 or 5 years later, maximum. So they were not older than that. So what did they play? They played a game of Rebbe and Chassid. What do children play? If they're children of a Rebbe, they play Rebbe. Chassid. So one of them put on a shtreimel, and he put on a big talus cottons. He sat down and a coat. So he's the Rebbe. So he said to his brother, the older one, said to his brother, let's play Rebbe and Chassid. You be the Rebbe, I'll be the Chassid. That's the older one was Solomon, and the younger one was the Rebbe. Rebbe who would be Rebbe. And the Seder was that when you had a private interview called Yechidus with the Rebbe, you'd have 2 questions. You'd only have 2 questions. One, a question in Jewish observance, how to live like a Jew. And the other one would be a question in Hasidus. So he asked a question. So the younger brother, Shalom Dolberry, the older brother said to the younger one, you be Rebbe, I'll be the Chassid. He said, no. The Rebbe is only one. I'm not even going to pretend to be Rebbe. This is a 4-year-old speaking. I'm not even going to pretend to be Rebbe. And to be a Chassid isn't play. So let's play Rebbe and Chassid. Being a Chassid isn't play. He says, okay, we'll switch. So the older brother put on the shtreimel, and the younger brother came in. He had a question. What was his question? He had a question in the laws of Shabbos. First, he asked his question in Hasidic thought. What was his question? 4-year-old. What is a Jew? Answers his 5-year-old brother, a Jew is fire. He says, if a Jew is fire, why don't I get burned when I touch you? It's a good question. He says, answers him, fire doesn't burn fire. These are 4-year-old kids, 4 and 5 years old. Fire doesn't burn fire. So then he asked him another question. He said, I have a question in laws of Shabbos because I had some peanuts on Shabbos, and I had not yet learned that the peanut shells, after you eat the peanut shells are muktzah, you're not allowed to touch them. Because you can't do anything with them. So anything you can't do anything with it on Shabbos is muktzah. That means you're not allowed, it's desert. It's like you have to leave it. And I didn't know, and I cleaned them up, whatever I did. So I'm asking for something to correct my mistake. He felt bad. Once he found out that you're not supposed to be involved with shells of nuts on Shabbos, he felt that he'd done something he against the will of God. Took it very seriously. 4-year-old boy. So he said, you should say certain Tehillim. I think he told him he should say some Tehillim and learn the laws of Shabbos carefully. That will be, and then he'll be okay. And then Hashem will forgive him. And his younger brother said, you're not a Rebbe. you're not a Rebbe. He says, why I'm not a Rebbe? He says, because our Father, when he answers a person a question on how to serve God, after he answers him, he sighs. He sighs. Because he feels sorry for the person. He feels badly for the person. He says, you're not a Rebbe. It gives a tremendous insight into their character. What makes a Rebbe? A Rebbe doesn't just know things. He has to feel for the person who's standing in front of him. Fabulous story. Another story about our Rebbe is in Hayom Yom. You may have this was probably mentioned last night, right? That he came into his grandfather. Grandfather was the Tzemach Tzedek Rebbe Menachem Mendel. And he was crying. He says, my darling Einikel, why are you crying? He says, because we learned in the Chumash that Hashem, last week, Hashem appeared to Avram on the third day after his bris. Why does Hashem appear to Avram and doesn't appear to me? He was crying. It's a good question. Fabulous question. Rebbe said, spoken of it a lot of times. And his grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek, answered him, because when a Jew, 99 years old, worked on himself to serve Hashem properly for 99 years and decides that he still needs a bris, in other words, he needs to cut away everything that's improper in his life, he deserves that Hashem should appear to him. I was once at a bris, and afterwards, the Rabbi Schusterman, who was the Baal Koira, he would read the Torah in the Rebbe's minyan. He sat down with the father and myself, and maybe one other person, to have a little snack before going to work. The bris was in shul in the morning, and then we sat down, and he said, what's the idea of a bris? Rabbi Schusterman said, what's the idea of a bris? The idea of a bris is, and he made his hand like this, he says, if there's something in your life that you don't need, cut it away. Cut it away. So when the person gets to the age of 99 and he's worked on understanding Torah and learning Torah and serving Hashem properly with love and fear, and he gets to the age of 99, he realizes there's something that's drastically wrong in his attitude and his behavior, you have to cut it away. If a person gets there, then he deserves that Hashem should appear to him. So young Sholem Ber said, does that mean that Hashem will never appear to me? Does that mean Hashem will never appear to me? And he answered him, he said, no. Because every time you do something good, to a certain degree, you are attaching yourself to God. And that's what it means that Hashem appears to you. It says about Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov, when Yaakov came to get the blessings from Yitzchak, and his twin brother Esau came to get the blessings from Yitzchak. So when Yaakov came in, his father Yitzchak said, oh, the aroma of Gan Eden just walked in, just came in. In other words, Yaakov Avinu, wherever he went, he was in Gan Eden. He was in the Garden of Eden. Where is the Garden of Eden? Where is it? Was it a place? Can you take a spaceship and get there? Hot air balloon? How do you get there? It's just a place that if you lead a good life, they open the door and they let you in. What is it? Gan Eden is Hashem. Gan Eden is a place where Hashem is revealed. And the neshama, when a person passes away, the neshama is sensitive to this. And the more a person is connected to Torah, knowledge, and to good deeds, mitzvahs, He's there. So when Yaakov came in, Yaakov had devoted his life to learning Torah and to doing the will of Hashem. He came in to see his father, and his father smelled the Gan Eden and just walked in. Gives you an idea of what happens when you go to the Ohel. Or if you go to the Rebbe's room, you let the ladies into the Rebbe's room. When you go in to be in a holy place, you bring your own holiness with you. And another, okay, now Chaf is number 20, right? Because the numbers in the Aleph base start with Aleph is 1, and base is 2, and Gimel is 3, right? You know this. So Aleph to Tes, 1 to 9, are the numerals. What's 10 is Yud. How do I get to 11? A Yud and an Aleph. 10 and 1 makes 11. 10 and 2 makes 12. 10 and 3. And that's how we go from 10 to 20. What happens after 19? 19 is Yud and Tes, 10 and 9. Where do I go from there? You go to after Yud, you go to the next letter. It's Chaf, it's 20. 20 is today. Today is 20. 20 of Cheshvan. But 20 is one of the unusual letters. It has a second form. When it's in the middle of a word, it's called Chaf. And when it's at the end of a word, it's called, in Yiddish, an ende Chaf, which means the Chaf that comes at the end, or in Hebrew, a Chaf Sofit, the end of Chaf. The Rebbe spoke about this one time, that this is a very deep idea, because Chaf has two forms. What are the two forms for? One is for the revealed level of Torah, and the end of Chaf, the special form, is for the inner life in Torah. The panemius, which we spoke about yesterday, panemius is the inner life, the inner soul, the godly life that's in things. A bit about the Rebbe Rashab. You'll learn more today. Let's go back now a little bit. We learned, just in summary, in the beginning of chapter 2, we learned two ideas about the opening line, that Nefesh Hashenis B'Yisrael, the second soul in a Jewish person, is a part of God. How do we know? We brought two examples. One is blowing. When you blow from deep in your diaphragm. You contract your diaphragm in order to blow hard. And that there we feel and experience the idea that when you blow from deep within you. So the whole idea that God blew an neshama, holy soul, into man is a parable, is a metaphor for the idea that the life within us is from deep within the life of God. How deep is deep? We're not talking about physical shape. That's just the idea. It says, from my flesh, I can understand God. This is an example. From the way my own body works, I can understand on a higher spiritual level. And the second example we have about the idea of panemius, the soul, is the inner essence and reality of our life, is the idea of the birth of a child. Because where does the child come from? Okay. Well, we learned about this when I was in school in grade 8. They taught us about these things. So you have a husband and a wife, and they want to have a family. Each one has to contribute their portion. Doesn't work on its own. Just doesn't work on its own. Certain people, they think it can work on its own. They'll adopt a child instead. That's not the way God makes the world. It's not what he wants. You know. The father contributes a seed. Where does the seed come from? What generates it? Number one is generated by love. Great, abounding love in a marriage. And what makes the love in the marriage deeper and deeper? If it's true, it's truer, it's balanced and supported by behavior that's true behavior. What's true behavior? True behavior is what the Torah requires of us. The Torah guides us. We should achieve a level of truth in our day-to-day behavior. And the more you're successful at that, the deeper your love becomes. I remember I was 15 years old. I was living with my sister, and she made a party. There were people in the party. They were not religious. I was not religious. And some woman came to visit me in my room where I was sort of recuperating. And she was very charming and very nice. And she said to me something that remained with me all my life. She said, she was not beautiful to look at, but she was very, very nice. And she said to me in the course of our conversation that the more you know a person and appreciate the goodness in them, the more beautiful they become. So that arouses a desire in the husband and the father to have a family. And this is the person he wants to have a family with. It's appropriate for him to have a family. And this generates a seed in him, which he then shares. Where does it come from? Does it come from your heart? Well, no, it doesn't really come from your heart. It comes from the brain. We're going to learn this in the chapter, it comes from the whiteness of the brain. That's what it speaks about. The whiteness of the brain is also a metaphor for a very high, true point of life in the brain. And that's where the seed comes from. And that's why the seed, the creative seed, is white. And the mother, well, what she creates and adds is red. It's in the blood. So we say the soul, it says in the Torah, the soul of the person is in the blood. And that's one reason why a Jewish child gets its identity, his or her identity, from the mother. The mother's not Jewish, they're not Jewish. That raised the whole question about conversion. I'm not going to go into it now. There's no time left for that. But just to touch something, there is my personal belief and feeling about this is that conversion is only a revealing of something that's already there. So you have a special kind of soul that's called the soul of a convert, which is a Jewish soul. From the beginning, it was a Jewish soul, and the conversion process is just revealing this. All right. Although there's a sikha from the Rebbe that was just shown on the Gem videos this last week, where the Rebbe speaks about why the soul of a child goes after the mother. And he says, because the mother nourishes the child for 9 months in the embryonic stage, as the child grows and develops, and she feeds the child from what she eats and what she drinks, and she has the tsar gid labonim, she has the pain and the suffering of pregnancy that she goes through, and she endures this for the sake of having a child. And then comes along a person and says, this child isn't Jewish if the father's not, this child's father, it could go according to the father. The Rebbe says, this is robbery. You're taking this child which belongs to the mother and saying, no, he or she belongs to the Father. How do you dare do such an absurdity and an injustice? Interesting. You could look it up. Okay. Thank you that very much. And a good yontif. Take advantage of the day. Give extra tzedakah. Make an easy decision, something you can do right away, like give an extra nickel to tzedakah before you eat lunch, or after you daven, give an extra penny or an extra nickel. Something easy, something you can do right away, but something that you did extra in the merit of this special day, which is a crucial turning point. Why is it a turning point? Because this Rebbe, the Rebbe Sholem Ber, the Rashab, he was the first one who started the yeshiva in which we are learning. We are all students of his students. So whatever we're getting from this is all because of what he started, that whole Pagisha this weekend. It's definitely worth. We have a sitter on the table anywhere? Sitter. Yeah, definitely deserves any good decision that you will implement today. And it's worthwhile for us to do this because that connects us with the Rebbe in a small way. But there's nothing that's small in Yiddishkeit. Every little thing is connected to something much, much bigger. It's just the first drop in the bucket. Whoever brought the milk, thank you very, very much. It's really refreshing. Thank you very, very much, girls. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. By the way, did you get up in this morning and remember to look up? Wasn't it magnificent? This it says before you daven in the morning, you should meditate on the greatness of Hashem. Well, there it was just on display in front of us. You look up and you see right there the majesty and the greatness of Almighty God. Oh.
Eu acho que eu tava pedindo algo para eles para fazer. Eu sei que eles têm para fazer, não viu? Não sabe. Yeah.
Mrs. Nunley's not here, so we're gonna come around the Majeski. That's two. I think there'll be some chairs. There's something like that. Yes, it is. None comfortable. No, she said. Because we don't have for a while, we overshared with that. Yeah, on the red chat, on the red chat. The red chat. Look at the chat.